due to the noise and disruptions, and many have been shut in due to the crowds, a lockdown imposed by the protest itself. Our residents have been through enough. These are not just minor inconveniences, but situations that have been debilitating for people who have already been through enough as a result of living through a global pandemic. We've had to close some businesses and daycares and inoculation centers. We've had to deal with aggressive behavior towards staff in our hotels, in our restaurants, and even at the Shepherds of Good Hope. Our police service has done an incredible job keeping things peaceful and ensuring that a potentially volatile situation does not escalate. Paramedics and first responders have had to deal with unruly and aggressive behavior from protesters that have managed to keep things under control with no deaths or serious injuries. As the capital of Canada, we're used to demonstration, but it's time for this one to move on. The Ottawa Police Service estimates policing costs for the protest of more than $800,000 per day. Businesses and organizations have been subjected to harassment and threats, and these disruptions have been financially debilitating to owners and staff. People who disagree with provincial and federal policies and legislation have the right to demonstrate, but they don't have the right to take their frustration out on people living in our community. C'est pas seulement la colline parlementaire, les édifices du gouvernement dans le centre-ville. Beaucoup de monde habite à la centre-ville, habite à la basse-ville, habite à la marché-bail. Et ce n'est pas juste pour les manifestants de continuer cette intimidation dans les quartiers résidentiels de notre ville. I understand, I want our residents though to understand that I understand their frustration. We're doing everything possible to bring this to an end peacefully. Again, I want to commend our partners, the Ottawa Police Service, and Chief Slowly will talk about the number of police services that have been helping us from Quebec and Ontario and the Federal Police Force and the Parliamentary Protective Service. We're very grateful. Merci aussi à tous les autres forces de police, les agents de police qui viennent d'Ottawa, dans tous les coins de la province de l'Ontario, la province du Québec et certainement le GRC et les personnalités qui sont responsables pour le colline parlementaire. I also want to commend our city staff for the exceptional job that they have done to manage the situation and keep residents informed. Some of our staff have been harassed and verbally attacked, and this is completely unacceptable in the civil society that we live in. I know we're all tired and frustrated, and I thank those men and women on the front lines bringing a sense of peace and stability to our city. Finally, I want to thank our residents for their patience and understanding. It's no fun having a diesel vehicle on a residential street honking its horn every hour on the hour, spewing diesel fumes into the neighborhoods. This is why I've said time and time again, you've had your say, you've had your platform, you've got lots of media attention. I fundamentally disagree with the premise of your campaign because, quite frankly, masks and vaccinations are some of the few tools we have to fight COVID-19. But you've had your moment, or your 15 minutes, time to move on, give back our city to our residents, and you go on your way to your community to raise these issues with your local members of Parliament. Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you, Mayor Watson. We will now hear remarks from Councillor Diane Deans.
Good afternoon, everyone. Bonjour tout le monde. Thank you for joining in this press conference this afternoon. I want to start, I think, where the mayor left off by adding my voice to all of those who want to express their disgust and dismay at the events of the last number of days in our community. We have never seen the likes of this kind of civil disobedience that we are witnessing in our city today. And I want to speak directly to those citizens who have been most impacted by this abhorrent behavior that has been unfolding in our city. I want to tell you that I see you and I hear you, and I know that you are very frustrated and that it is hard to understand what is happening here and how it will ultimately come to an end. I completely understand your frustration. We are all very frustrated with the situation that we find ourselves in. We all want to get back to our lives. We want to get back to some semblance of normalcy. We want our childcare facilities to reopen and our libraries to reopen. We want to be able to walk safely to our grocery stores. We don't want to feel that we're being shut into our homes because of this. I understand the level of frustration. I also understand that this is a very volatile situation and it has the potential to escalate far beyond what we have seen. And as abhorrent as the acts of racism and violence have been in the city, they could be much worse. And the Ottawa Police Service and their police partners have been working first and foremost to ensure public safety of all of our citizens. They've been working to de-escalate, and the focus has been on de-escalation. There have been many questions, and I understand those questions. I've been asking them about why we haven't been enforcing city bylaws. I want you to know that it is my expectation as chair of the Police Services Board that the people who have involved themselves in criminal acts and acts of violence in our city be fully prosecuted. But right now, the focus has to be on ensuring the safety of every single citizen, ensuring the safety of the men and women of the police services that are here, that are working on the front lines of this event. And we have to know that we have the foremost leading experts working on this file, working with us, working to make decisions and choices in the best interest of safety in this community. And we have to trust. We have to trust right now that what the police are doing is de-escalating a situation and ensuring the safety of the public. And that's what I want to leave the public with. I know that, we can ask a lot of questions and there will be time for asking those questions when this is over. But right now we have to believe that the decisions that are being made in the interest of the public and in the best interest of public safety. This is an event like no other event we have witnessed in our city's history before. It is a national event. It is an event that is changed by virtue of having heavy trucks that can be used as weapons in this city. And the choices that are being made to ensure that we keep everyone safe as possible. So I, like all of you, feel the frustration. I know that our patience is worn thin. I know that we would all like this to come to an ending just as soon as possible. But I just ask that you consider the work that is being done and know that the decisions that are being made with the best possible evidence. And evidence, by the way, is being collected. Evidence is being collected on people who are disobeying our laws and engaging in criminal activity and racist behavior. That evidence is collected and that those individuals will be dealt with. So I just want to leave you with that. And our goal is to make sure harm comes to no one and that we get our city returned to us just as soon as possible. And I want to take this opportunity to thank the citizens for their patience. I want to take the opportunity to thank Chief Slowly and the men and women of the Ottawa Police Service. I want to thank all of the other police services who are here helping. I want to thank the City of Ottawa who have really been great partners with Ottawa Police through this entire event. And I want to, again, thank everyone for their patience. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you, Councillor Deans. We will now hear remarks from Chief Peter Slowly. Chief, you're on mute.
Good afternoon. I want to thank the mayor and the chair for their comments that preceded mine. I'm going to provide you with an update since the last media session we held on Friday, prior to the commencement of the core of the demonstrations that have arrived in the nation's capital. You'll recall at that last media briefing that we described this as a unique demonstration. You've heard some of those elements from Chair Deans and Mayor Watson. For those of you that live in the downtown core of Ottawa, you will have seen that materialized over the last 4 days. And the experiences of our frontline officers, our civilian members, our partners from national, provincial, and municipal agencies have experienced the same thing. This is a demonstration unique in nature, massive in scale, polarizing in context, dangerous in literally every other aspect of the event itself. From this started on the west coast of Canada and spread across the country, it has been fluid, ever-changing, and increasingly more difficult to manage. That has remained from the beginning, and it continues to this current day. I want to provide you with updated information from the course of events that took place through Friday afternoon into Saturday, Saturday evening, into Sunday, Sunday evening, into Monday. As we talked about on Friday, the ingress of thousands of vehicles, particularly heavy trucks, caused almost immediate traffic gridlock through Friday into traffic chaos on Saturday and Sunday. As we told you on Friday, that ingress level of vehicles and demonstrators would make large areas of the downtown core, as well as the access routes in and out of the city, bridges, 400 series highways, major thoroughfares, would become difficult to navigate for pedestrians, cyclists, motorists of any kind. It would create situations, pockets of dangerous areas for people to travel through. It would require our residents and our businesses to get updated information from ourselves, our city partners, and other agencies around the current state of issues and risks, and to make informed decisions for the safety of themselves, their families, and their businesses. For the most part, people who have been directly affected have been incredibly patient, incredibly resilient, and they have suffered a lot. I want to recognize those people who live, work, or need to commute through the downtown core of Ottawa. They have been incredibly impacted, negatively impacted by the course of demonstrations and the impact those demonstrations have had on their lives and their livelihoods. We're incredibly concerned about the stress they've been under, not just in the last several days, but in the last months and years of the pandemic. We're very much aware of this, and we're doing everything we possibly can to mitigate those impacts against individuals, families, and businesses. At the same time, I need to let everyone know the incredible level of bravery, compassion, professionalism, and dedication of all Ottawa Police Service members, all of the partner agencies that have joined us here in the last 4 days, all of our partners at the City of Ottawa, anyone who's played any direct role in supporting the operations around this demonstration. They have been an incredible group of individuals who've kept this city safe during a situation that could have become riotous. It could have led to significant and severe injuries, and it could have led to the loss of life. None of that has occurred over the last 4 days. Let me repeat, no injuries, no deaths, no riots in the last 4 days in the nation's capital, despite the fact that we have a global cause, national protest, tens of thousands of individuals from a wide variety of causes who have gathered to actively demonstrate 24 hours a day for the last 4 days. All of that coupled with thousands of heavy trucks, SUVs, and cars driving into the city and congregating in the core of this city, 24 hours a day for 4 days a week. I want to specifically thank the following agencies who have come from the federal, provincial, and municipal levels: RCMP, Ontario Provincial Police, Gatineau Police, Sûreté du Québec, London Police Services, Hamilton Police Services, Peel Region Police Services, Toronto Police Services, York Region Police Services, Durham Region Police Services. They have sent their members of their organization with experience and expertise, professionalism and compassion. They've joined under our incident command system, and they have provided very needed, very timely, very professional, very effective services to keep this city safe, to keep our community safe, to keep our residents safe, to keep our city workers safe, to maintain emergency routes for fire, ambulance, and police, to ensure the safety of our healthcare centers, our hospitals, our vaccination clinics, to ensure as much as possible the continuation of business within the city and the lifeblood of the city in terms of our ability for our residents to receive emergency services. There were reports of denial of service, injuries, and trauma related directly to the demonstration. I can tell you that is not true. We have verification from our ambulance services, fire services, and police services. While there were delayed responses and in certain cases gaps in service delivery, nobody was directly affected in regards to ambulatory service requirements, emergency services requirements. That despite the fact of the massive traffic chaos and gridlock that we saw, not just in the core, but on our major access ingress routes in the bridges and 400 series highways. That is an incredible level of coordination and professionalism that was demonstrated over the last 4 days. Going forward, I want to be clear. Public safety remains our paramount priority. The safety of our residents, the safety of our businesses, the safety of our visitors, the safety of our partners, the safety of our service members, and yes, the safety of all those who've chosen to come here to demonstrate, whether they live in this city or they've come from other locations across the country. Effective tomorrow, we are redeploying our market neighborhood resource teams, our Centertown neighborhood resource teams, our crime prevention officers back into their neighborhoods, into the market, into Lower Town, into Sandy Hill, into Centertown. Their jobs will be to provide direct support services, safety services, customer service to the residents and business owners, the not-for-profit sector, the service providers in and around the core. Unfortunately, we needed those officers over the last 4 days. Every single one of those officers were deployed fully and continually. They are tired, they're stressed, and they're strained, but every one of them know the stress and strain that was imposed upon their communities, and they're going back to serve and protect those communities effective tomorrow. The situation of the demonstration has scaled down over the last 12 hours. Let me repeat. The situation of the demonstration has scaled down over the last 12 hours. We want that trend to continue until this demonstration comes to a complete end. I cannot guarantee you that right now, but I can guarantee you that every effort at negotiation and coordination, de-escalation has continued throughout the last 4 days and will continue until the complete end of this demonstration. We will maintain a large contingent of our neighborhood and crime prevention officers in the immediate communities around where the core demonstrations are taking place to be able to provide greater services, a greater sense of safety, and greater interactions with those who've been most affected. Within the next 24 hours, we are going to be creating a hotline for hate incidents, hate crimes, any offenses directly related to the demonstrations, including criminal offenses, threats, assaults, hate-related crimes, mischiefs, anything that any member of the community, any visitor, any demonstrator has faced in terms of criminal activity, a hotline will be established to receive those reports. There will be an immediate and continuous investigation until we have resolved it by way of charge and prosecution. We have continued our relationship and working relationship with the Crown's office. We have the intelligence officers and the investigative officers and multi-jurisdictional support from British Columbia to St. John's, from Nunavut to the GTA, to make sure that no matter where you live, no matter where your vehicle is registered, if you've come here and committed a crime, if you have committed a hate crime, you will be investigated. We will look for you. We will charge you. If necessary, we'll arrest you, and we will pursue prosecutions against you. We have several active criminal investigations undergoing, from bribery to threats to assaults to the dangerous operation of vehicles. They will continue. Please report to us any other matters that we are not aware of. We have had meetings throughout the last 24 hours. I have had calls with the mayor, the chair, council members who represent the wards in the immediate area of the demonstration sites. We have had meetings with the city councilor, city legal. I have had direct meetings today with Commissioner Brenda Lucky, Commissioner Tom Carrick of the Ontario Provincial Police, their executive staff and operational leads in the National Capital Region. We have continued to request levels of resources and support from our partner agencies, federally, provincially, and municipally, and they have all been generous in providing those requests, those resource requests, and are continuing to support us as we go forward. We continue negotiations with the core organizers of the core protest. We are emphatic in our desire to resolve these demonstrations as quickly and safely and effectively as possible. That will continue until the very end. All options are on the table. Through negotiation, through to enforcement. All options remain on the table to safely and effectively resolve this demonstration. We will work in full coordination with the City of Ottawa. My thanks to Steve Kanalakis and his amazing team. You're going to hear from Kim Ayotte very shortly. We're going to work in full cooperation with our federal, provincial, and municipal policing partners, national security agencies, and other public sector agencies. As we have done from the first day, we will do so to the last day. Let me repeat again. Public safety has been paramount from the very beginning of this operation. We have had 4 dangerous, difficult, dynamic days of 24 hours a day operations in frigid temperatures, minus 25, minus 30 degrees. Our officers work 12, 14, 18-hour days in the cold, directly with extremely dangerous and dynamic situations. There were 1,000 potential flashpoints that could have resulted in rioting, injury, or death. They did not occur. We kept this city safe. We kept our community safe. We kept our partners safe. We kept our members safe. I'm indebted to the professionalism and the duty to serve and protect of our members of the Ottawa Police Services and the partner agencies. I'm indebted to the resilience of our residents, our business owners, our visitors, our employers, our employees. This has been a whole of service effort. It's been a whole of city effort. And to a degree, it has been a whole of country effort. So far, we've been successful. We take nothing for granted. We take nothing for granted. We are making progress, real progress. We've reduced the size of the demonstration significantly. We will continue to do so in the hours and days ahead of us. Your patience is necessary. Your support is appreciated. Your resilience is amazing. Thank you very much. My team is here to answer any questions. Deputy Chief Bell, from an investigations intelligence standpoint, Deputy Chief Ferguson, from an operational standpoint. I will remain until all questions are asked. We'll provide the best and most up-to-date information for you and the media. I thank Mayor Watson, Chair Deans, and Council for your support. Steve Kanalakis and the team at the City of Ottawa for your support. I'll turn things back over to the moderator now. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Slowly. We will now hear remarks from Kim Ayotte.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Chief Slowly. Thank you, Chair Deans, and thank you, Mayor Watson. Bonjour à tous et à toutes. The demonstration that took place in Ottawa this weekend, and is still going on now, has been an unprecedented size and scope. I want to commend city staff and our partners with the Ottawa Police Service for their skill and professionalism with which they carried out their duties this weekend, evaluating an ever-changing situation and providing solutions in a peaceful manner. Je tiens à féliciter les personnels municipaux et de nos partenaires du service de police d'Ottawa qui ont fait preuve que le professionnalisme et les compétences lors de l'accomplissement de leurs tâches au cours de la fin de la semaine dernière et évaluant la mouvance de la situation et en offrant des solutions. We continue to work with police and are determining next steps so that the downtown core and the city can return to some normalcy. We are aware of residents' concerns, demonstrators parking in the streets, and of excessive noise. I want to thank Ottawa residents, especially those who live downtown, for their patience and understanding while dealing with this extraordinary and unsettling intrusion, literally in their backyards. This has been an extremely difficult time for residents as their lives have been uprooted. We're all aware of the challenges this has posed and are working with Ottawa Police Service to manage the delicate balance of maintaining a peaceful demonstration while also addressing these concerns. We said from the start that our number one priority was to maintain safety for our residents, businesses, and demonstrators, and to maintain lanes for emergency vehicles. This continues to be our focus today. Dès le début, nous avons précisé que notre plus grande priorité était de protéger les résidents, les commerces et les manifestants, et de réserver des voies pour les véhicules d'urgence. We also recognize that many residents rely on OC Transport and have not had the same access to service. The city's transit service department has worked tirelessly this weekend to implement bus detours and to direct customers to the O Train Line 1 to move through downtown. I want to thank OC Transport staff who are deployed across the system to assist customers. As noted in the city's public service announcement yesterday, City Hall, including the parking garage, is closed. The Rideau Center is closed, as well as several other private businesses. These closures have been communicated through the usual channels. There are currently no anticipated impacts to residents' waste collections. However, this could change tomorrow. We'll be communicating any changes through collection calendar, a public service announcement, and on the City of Ottawa social media accounts. Snow removal operations, which were paused citywide last Friday, will resume or have resumed this morning. We continue to urge people to avoid non-essential travel to the downtown core. I want to assure Ottawa residents that emergency services throughout the city are deployed and focused on ensuring that the safety of the public is maintained and that dedicated lanes are kept cleared for emergency services. Je tiens à dire aux résidents d'Ottawa que, déployés dans toute la ville, les services d'urgence veillent à assurer la sécurité du public et à dégager les voies réservées aux véhicules d'urgence. If any time you feel like your safety is threatened or if you need medical emergency, call 911. Again, I want to acknowledge how difficult this situation is for residents. Our city has been uprooted. We are doing everything we can to mitigate the impact and to try to provide access to residents while maintaining public safety. We are evaluating this day by day, hour by hour. Nous faisons tout notre possible pour atténuer les conséquences et offrir un accès aux résidents. La situation est évaluée de jour en jour et d'heure en heure. I encourage residents to follow the City of Ottawa Facebook and Twitter to stay up to date on service changes that could affect you. The City of Ottawa continues to provide updates on maps at ottawa.ca. For traffic updates, follow the City of Ottawa at Ottawa_traffic. For transit updates or impacts, follow OC Transport's Twitter account, visit octransport.com, or call 613-560-5000. Thank you. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you, Mr. Ayotte. I will now invite questions from each agency alphabetically. You may ask one question with a follow-up. Nous allons maintenant répondre aux questions de chaque organisme par ordre alphabétique. Vous pouvez poser une question et une question de suivi. Again, a reminder to all participants to keep their cameras off unless they are speaking or asking questions. Un rappel à tous les participants de fermer l'option vidéo. We will now start with, nous allons commencer avec a writing question from Caroline Bertrand, 104.7 Ottawa, who wants to know, en français, est-ce qu'une aide pourrait être apportée aux camionneurs qui n'ont plus d'essence et qui donc ne peuvent pas quitter le centre-ville?
And I apologize, can I get a translation for the question, please?
Of course, sir. She would like to know if any assistance is going to be given to truck drivers who no longer have any gas and aren't able to leave downtown.
There will be no assistance provided for gassing vehicles. We are working to make sure that those vehicles that choose to leave are able to leave the downtown core in the safest way possible. I will ask Deputy Chief Ferguson if she has any more specific information around the part of the question that relates to gasoline provision.
Oui, bonjour Caroline. Je peux vous parvenir que nous n'aurions, la police d'Ottawa n'offre pas de service en tant que distribuer de la gasoline. Nous sommes là seulement pour la sûreté et la sécurité des membres de la manifestation.
Thank you. We will now go to Travis Danraj with CBC National News.
Thank you very much for that. And thank you guys for doing this update this afternoon. It is very helpful. Question to the mayor, and I'm wondering if the police chief can weigh in as well. So far, we have been successful. No injuries, no deaths, no riots. Is that the bar of success in Ottawa?
Well, I think that's a pretty remarkable achievement, given the fact there are so many people in such a short period of time in such a condensed space that we've been able to maintain the peace. A lot of these people came with a lot of fire in their belly and looking for a fight. And our police officers and other first responders, I think, have done a remarkable job of damping down that anger to the point where we've had few arrests and we've had a few incidents of vandalism. The ones that we have witnessed are abhorrent and outrageous. But I get a lot of emails and tweets. Why don't you just send in the tow trucks and send in the parking control people? And the chief addressed that very succinctly. We're not interested in inflaming the situation. We'll continue to work as best as possible with the organizers and try our very best to encourage those people to move on, because they're destroying the quality of life of so many of our residents. But the last thing we need is to have some behavior that creates a mini riot where there are still thousands of people on the hill and in and around the hill. And we don't want that to happen. We don't want to see blood shed. Chief?
Thank you, Mayor. We saw from weeks ago, when the very early stirrings of this demonstration were starting to come to attention on open source social media. We saw it a week ago when the demonstration crossed over from Manitoba into Ontario. We saw it 4 days ago when the first trucks and demonstrators arrived in the city of Ottawa. And we've seen it as much as an hour ago online as the demonstration goes into its full 5th day. Clear statements and incitements to riotous behavior, injury, the bringing of arms and weapons into the National Capital Region, specifically in direct support of or indirect support of the range of demonstration causes and activities. Question was, is the bar of success no riots, no injuries, no death? Absolutely. We have had no riots, no injuries, no death, despite weeks, days, hours of intense provocation and allegations that those things would in fact happen, despite tens of thousands of people converging from across the country into the downtown core of the nation's capital. despite thousands of trucks, huge, heavy trucks, all through tight streets, residential areas, tight business corridors, tourist areas, Parliament Hill. No riots, no injuries, no deaths. That is a measure of success for any jurisdiction in Canada and quite frankly, anywhere in the world. That credit goes to our officers, our partners, our city workers, our residents, and our business owners and our service providers, and the leadership of the city, from the mayor to the chair to Steve Kanalakis and his team at the city. Huge credit, a measure of success anywhere, anytime.
Okay, thank you for that, Chief. I do have a follow-up for you and the mayor on a specific incident. And Chief, also I'm wondering if you can, in this answer, update in terms of if there are any additional arrests in addition to that one that you spoke of yesterday. But Mayor, there was an incident that Catherine McKenney, City Councillor, talked about. A couple hanging the rainbow flag. Their residence was apparently, pelted with rocks and snowballs, and somebody defecated on the home. Chief, I'm wondering if you can confirm that, and also, Mayor, I'm wondering what you think about that and your message to the LGBTQ community.
Well, thank you, Travis, for the question. I did hear Councillor McKenney talk about that very, very disgusting display of homophobia on the part of some of the protesters. Because they wanted to display the pride flag at their home, and that they came back the next day and that these people had to leave their home. That's the kind of thing I'm talking about. This kind of intimidation and bullying tactics is causing great angst in the community. And here's an example of homophobia. We see examples downtown of racism and anti-Semitism. So it's quite a collection of people that have arrived and are really, quite frankly, terrorizing some of our residents in their neighborhoods. And that is not acceptable. And that's why I've said to the organizers, who I believe monitor a lot of social media, it's time to move on. I think you're doing a great disservice to the men and women in the trucking industry who do good work for us time and time again. We're seeing a side of that industry that is very ugly and very disturbing. And to simply attack someone for proudly putting up a pride flag is reprehensible, and then defecating on their lawn. It's just such a puerile behavior on the part of what should be responsible adults in a civil society. Chief?
Thank you, Mayor. I completely concur with all your words. You'll recall in my opening remarks, we've established a hate crime hotline for any hate incidents, hate crimes that have happened in direct or indirect relationship to the demonstrations taking place in Ottawa. That will be staffed by trained investigators. They will receive reports. They will commence investigations. They will pursue charges where appropriate, make arrests if necessary, and pursue prosecutions to the fullest extent in coordination with the Crown's office. We already have a number of hate-related incidents that we are investigating. We encourage anyone who's been the victim of a hate crime or think they may have been the victim of a hate crime or exposed to hate incidents to contact us. Ottawa Police was the first police service in Canada to establish a hate crime unit. It was expanded under my tenure as Chief of Police. We have the top hate crime investigators in the Ottawa Police Service, including Detective Ali Tobro. We are fully connected in with our Jewish, Indigenous, racialized LGBT community. We have the ability to conduct significant investigations to any hate incident. If this has occurred and it has not already been reported, I encourage the people who were victimized in that way to contact us immediately, and we will commence an investigation. If it has been reported already, I will ensure we follow up with the status of that investigation. Thank you very much.
And Chief, just on the arrests, is there any update on that?
On the arrests of what?
The number of arrests that have been made. Yesterday it was 1.
We still only have 1 arrest directly associated to the demonstration. There are a number of criminal investigations and related investigations that are underway.
Thank you so much for the question. We will now go to Joe Tunney at CBC Ottawa.
Hi, can you hear me?
We sure can.
Okay, and I just want to make sure I get a response in French and English. This is for the city, possibly the mayor. What tools are available to the city to hasten the protesters' exit from Ottawa? When do you consider appealing to the province?
Thank you, Joe. I'll ask Kim Ayotte to comment on that as our General Manager of Emergency Protective Services. And Kim, if you could give the answer in English and French, please.
Yes, certainly. Thank you for the question, Joe. Sorry, can you just repeat the question one more time, please?
Yeah, certainly. What tools are available to the city to hasten the protesters' exit? And, when do you consider appealing to the province, as an example?
Right. Thank you for that. At the moment, this protest is under the command of the police, so we're working very closely with them. And obviously, we can discuss various different options at our Emergency Operations Center and our Emergency Operations Control Group, which is the leadership of the EOC. And we are in the process of doing that now. The tools are varied, but they all have different risk impacts. So at this point in time, I think it'd be better for us to have those conversations before we start, fear mongering or potentially creating situations where the tools that are available don't actually materialize in being executed. So there are several, I guess, Joy, there are several tools that could be used, and we're still in the process of discussing those right now.
I haven't, my follow-up, actually, sorry, can I get you to respond in French before moving on?
Et en français, il y a plusieurs mesures qu'on est en train de discuter au centre d'urgence de protection d'urgence et à ce moment, on est pour liberté de vous expliquer toutes les différentes mesures, autant qu'on est en train de les discuter, mais on pense que dans les prochains jours, vous allez avoir les résultats de ces discussions-là.
Okay, and for my follow-up, same, if you don't mind responding in French and English, on a logistical level, how many more days can the city take before services like garbage collection or snow removal reach a breaking point?
Well, I think that we have the capabilities right now to continue with garbage collection, and if there are any impacts, we'll let the citizens know through our regular media channels. Same with snow removal. I don't think there's a time limit on when those will be impacted. It all depends on the quantity of snow and what we're facing. But right now, all services are being delivered, and we continue to move forward. So I think it's more a matter of some of the other issues that the police are also considering, such as noise and idling and all of those other nuisance issues that need to be addressed as well, as our citizens are affected by these demonstrations. And we should try and resolve this as quickly as possible. And we totally support the police in their decisions that they're making at this point in time.
Great. Can I get that in? Yeah, thank you.
En français, il n'y a pas de service. Le service de collection de déchets est non affecté à ce moment. On continue à ramasser les déchets. Pareil avec la neige, on continue à dévaler la neige. Et on voit pas, il n'y a pas une limite de jour ou de temps qu'on va se trouver dans une position où on va pas être capable de faire ça, mais on ne sait jamais les circonstances. Les circonstances peuvent changer à chaque jour. Travaillant avec la police, il y a d'autres choses qui nous inquiètent aussi, le bruit et les différentes choses que les résidents sont en train de voir dans leur quartier, des camions, idling, il y a toutes sortes d'affaires. On travaille avec la police pour voir c'est quand que les résidents en ont eu assez. C'est ça la décision qu'on va prendre.
Thank you. We will now go to Alex Gouge with City News Ottawa.
Thank you. I just have one question for today, and it's for Chief Slowly or whoever from Ottawa Police would be best to answer this. Are you anticipating more crowds this upcoming weekend? We've heard from the president of the local hotel association who says many people have rebooked who have checked out on the weekend. They have rebooked for next weekend to come, who have been here for demonstrations.
Alex, thank you very much for your question. We've heard similar information. I can't say whether that's going to be 100, 1,000, 10,000. But clearly there's an indication that there are efforts being made to extend the demonstration beyond the weekend, through the week, potentially into the next weekend. As I said before, and I'll repeat again, the scale of these operations are significant. The number of people is not out of the ordinary for large demonstrations in big cities, particularly in the nation's capital, but the extra presence of the large number of vehicles and heavy vehicles, the level of funding and overall support and organization in and around the core demonstrations is significant and unprecedented. The level of personal commitment expressed by those online and on our streets is significant. The nature of the global pandemic and the 2 years of stress and strain on every Canadian is another added factor into this. And we've seen from the moment this demonstration left from the West Coast and has morphed over the last several weeks, that literally on a day-by-day and sometimes on an hour-by-hour basis, the numbers of participants, the nature of the causes, the expressions of what will take place or what actually do take place change. It's a very fluid, very dynamic, very large scale, and therefore very dangerous set of circumstances that we've been facing and will continue to face until we bring a complete closeout to this set of demonstrations. But I thank you for your question, sir.
Thank you. We will now go to Ted Raymond with CTV Ottawa.
Hi there, can you hear me okay?
We sure can.
Okay, excellent. So I guess this question to start is for Chief Slowly and for Mayor Watson. I'm just looking to get maybe another comment just to residents who haven't been able to sleep. They don't feel safe to leave their homes this weekend and into this week. Can you give them some reassurances of when they will be able to get back to maybe a sense of a normal life again?
Chief, maybe I'll begin and offer a comment. First, thank you for the question, Ted. One of the ways we're doing that is to get these neighborhood community officers back in the neighborhoods that they know very well and patrol and dialogue with members of the community to offer a greater police presence in those neighborhoods. That's a start. The fact that we're starting to see some of the vehicles leave, the sooner they leave, the better, quite frankly, and that reduces some of the pressures on our police officers. That they can actually get into these neighborhoods to make sure that restaurants are not being bullied and harassed, because of course today's the first day where we can have in dining experiences. And the last thing we need is a bunch of these bullies coming from the protests, browbeating, poor 15 or 17-year-old person working at a restaurant or a fast food place. So my hope is that that police presence will give some reassurance. And Chief, I'll ask you to offer other comments. This may be my last question. I have to do another live interview and take a phone call. So I apologize. I'll stay as long as I can to 4:30. Chief?
Thank you, Mayor. I'll echo your comments, sir. Our commitment, beyond what the mayor said, is to redeploy uniformed members, our neighborhood resource teams that were previously deployed into the market area, Lower Town, Sandy Hill, Center Town communities, redeploy them out of the operational demonstration command structure that we've had in place for the last 5 days. They'll return to their normal duties. Their primary focus will be around creating a sense of safety and confidence in the safety of those communities. And those are the communities that have been most negatively and directly affected over the last 5 days. We are asking for additional resources within the organization and from our partner agencies to offset the loss of those neighborhood officers from the actual demonstration, so they can return to those duties with a high focus on raising confidence in the local communities, giving them a sense of normalcy, and as quickly as possible, we will try to return the city to a sense of normalcy. That will depend on our ongoing success to date around a quick, safe, effective end to the demonstration. That requires a significant amount of coordination with a wide variety of people who are in the city for a wide variety of reasons. But we've had significant success over the weekend in terms of safety. We continue to have good lines of communication open, and we've seen a significant drawdown of the number of protesters and trucks. That has already resulted in somewhat of a reduction of the types of issues that local residents and businesses were facing. We're going to continue with every effort. All options remain on the table.
Okay, thank you for that. My follow-up question is also to you, Chief Slowly, just with regard to, I assume you and your officers have been in contact with organizers or keeping in contact with the organizers of this demonstration. And some there have been suggestions that they say they plan to stay until their demands are met. Maybe can you talk a little bit about at what point does this reach a point where they are subject to some of the laws and bylaws that are in place? I mean, are people basically going to be permitted to park on Wellington Street for as long as they please, or is there a point where this crosses over from a lawful demonstration into something that you would consider maybe a nuisance or a problem?
Thank you very much for the question. As I've said before, said again today, I'll repeat, anybody that breaks the law, acts criminally, acts violently, in direct relationship or indirect relationship with these demonstrations, we will conduct investigations, we will lay appropriate charges. Our ability to do so in the moment is significantly hampered by the large size, dynamic, and dangerous nature of the events themselves. We have to prioritize public safety where we're going to have the biggest risk. So we have not been able to get to a wide range of infractions, bylaw infractions, noise infractions, HTA infractions. As we get less people in the demonstration core zones and we can release more officers into wider areas, we'll be able to take more effective actions. Even then, the dynamic nature of this, we're going to have to be extremely careful that those actions in the moment don't create a larger public safety risk for residents, businesses, visitors, members of our service, our partner agencies. We take literally every instant of interaction with a great deal of care to not inflame the situation, but we are not ignoring infractions, and we'll hold people to account as much as possible.
Thank you. We will now go to Kevin Gallagher with CTV National News.
I think I'm unmuted now. Thank you. My question is for Chief Slowly. I just want to start in November of 2020. 12 protesters were arrested and charged with mischief for blocking Laurier Avenue and Nicholas Street. That was for a protest for the justice for Mr. Abdi. Now, I'd like to know, because many activists have criticized here, if this protest was a Black Lives Matter protest or an Indigenous rights protest that was blocking downtown Ottawa, basically locking down the streets, would the response from the Ottawa police be the same?
Thank you very much for your question. We have, in my tenure here as Chief of Police, in February, I believe, or January of 2020, there was a massive demonstration around the protests that originated in Wet'suwet'en in British Columbia. People from across the country, across the province, and across the city converged on downtown core, and for the most part of the day, we shut down traffic in the core, facilitated peaceful protest, albeit unlawful, but peaceful protest in order to find that balance between the ability for people to exercise their charter rights, demonstrate in the nation's capital around incidents and issues that were national, provincial, and local in nature. We did that in the summer of the same year. A massive Black Lives protest in the wake of the George Floyd murder in the United States took over the downtown core of the city for a full day from the early morning hours into the late nighttime hours. We facilitated peaceful and sometimes unlawful behavior to balance between charter rights and demonstration freedoms in addition to public safety. We have done that on countless occasions, literally hundreds of times a year, in my 2 years here as chief of police and hundreds of times a year over the course of the time of the Ottawa Police Service. In relation to the specific demonstration you referenced in November 2020, I don't see any real connection with the scale, the size, the nature of what we're facing here. The principles, however, associated to threat risk assessment, resources that are available, the nature of the ability for us to coordinate, negotiate with identified organizers, the willingness to find solutions and compromises, a completely different set of circumstances. Every demonstration has certain similar characteristics. Every demonstration is unique. This demonstration is not only unique, but unprecedented. I hope that answers your question, sir.
Thank you. I want to know, in your negotiations with the organizers of this protest, what is the path to ending this protest? Like what many of my other colleagues have said, many have told members of the media they plan to stay here until their demands are met. But is there any perhaps compromise? I understand everyone's right, like you point out, to protest in a democratic society. But is there, a way to have a compromise? And what type of compromises are you working on to allow these Canadians to express their views while not infringing on the freedoms of others who live nearby?
Thank you very much for your question. And I think you'd understand one of the most important things around a negotiation is confidence and confidentiality and the nature of what's being discussed. I can tell you in broad principles, our efforts are trying to find a compromise that balances just that. How can we ensure, to the greatest degree possible, people have their charter right to demonstrate in the nation's capital without significantly infringing on the needs and the aspirations, expectations of people who live, work, and play and visit in the nation's capital? That is a consistent approach that our police liaison team members do for every demonstration, no matter the size and no matter the cause. Those principles of negotiation, the ability to try to find compromise, and the ability to end demonstrations peacefully, even if they're not lawful demonstrations, but end them peacefully and as quickly as possible, is at the heart of every effort of negotiation that we've done in every single demonstration that we do in the nation's capital.
Thank you. We will now move on to David Baxter with Global News.
Great, thank you. Yes, question would be for Chief Slowly. We received a few reports now of trucks hitting police barricades, paramedics having rocks thrown at them, some shots of racial slurs as they did their work. Can you confirm whether or not these incidents happened? And going back earlier, you mentioned there was no significant delays with emergency responders, but there have been some. Can you tell us about the nature of those delays? Oh, and sorry.
Sorry, was there another part to the question?
Not unmuted before. Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Perfect, thank you. Sorry, some technical issues there.
I'm sorry, I'm just going to ask, can you repeat the question? I caught most of the front end, but I wasn't sure I got the back end.
Oh, for sure, yeah. Yes, so let's go from the top here. So we received a few reports of incidents of trucks hitting police barricades and paramedics having rocks thrown at them while they worked them. So we're looking to get some confirmation on whether or not these happened or if police are aware of them. And just going back to the start of the press conference, you mentioned that, well, first responders like ambulance and firefighters have seen some delays. There haven't been significant gaps in service. Can you tell us about some of the nature of those delays?
Thank you very much. I will leave that second part of the question to Kim Ayotte to speak on behalf of ambulance, fire, and other city services. I will ask Trish Ferguson and or Steve Bell to comment on the incidents that you related before and the status of any investigations in association to them. Trish or Steve?
Good afternoon. We don't have any further, we've heard some of that anecdotal information as well, but have not been able to clarify it unless Steve has an investigation that's open on those.
Yeah, thanks very much for the question. So we've received a number of complaints, and so far we have active investigations opened on all the complaints we've received. The specific allegations you're speaking of, I'm not sure have been included, and that's part of the reason why the chief has spoken today about establishing that conduit into us in order to create and receive information to initiate those investigations. So to date, we have 12 investigations that we've initiated through a dedicated team that's been allocated towards this incident. Those investigations are ongoing, and we continue to speak with witnesses and collect information and evidence, and we'll report on and update on those as those investigations progress.
Thank you. And my next question, I was out there talking to people in the protests about the noise levels and honking throughout the night, and the fact that tens of thousands of people live in and around downtown Ottawa. They haven't been able to sleep. I know you're all well aware of this. Is there anything going on in these investigations to talk about the noise levels? I know you don't want to get by law involved at this point yet, and most of the people I talk to are saying, well, you know, that's just the way it goes. Sucks to be them, essentially. So, like, what are you going to do about this for regular people who just happen to live in downtown Ottawa near these protests?
Thank you very much. All these indirect and direct impacts from the demonstration on local community, local residents, local businesses are part of the suite of issues being negotiated as best we can with the core organizers. Again, I got to stress, the core organizers are do not represent every person who drives a vehicle or walks into the downtown area as part of the larger set of demonstrations. Even when we are able to get compromises around things like parking, seating lanes of traffic, reducing the amount of noise and congestion and pollution in the area with one group, they do not speak for all elements that have driven from all parts of the country, all parts of the province, and indeed all parts of the city into the core. We don't have a singular cohesive group of individuals around which we are conducting these negotiations. We have seen success to date with those negotiations, a significant reduction in the number of vehicles and the number of persons participating in the demonstrations over the last 4 days, and particularly over the last 24 hours. That trend will continue as much as we can. We can't guarantee it. So we are having success, reducing the impacts as you described them, noise bylaw, traffic congestion, and other associated disruptions to the lives and livelihood of the people and business owners in the core of the city. We'll continue to do that to the best of our ability. I will invite Deputy Chief Ferguson to speak about some of the interactions that the members of our frontline officers and partner agencies have been experiencing at the barricades and the perimeters that include officers being threatened to be run over by vehicles and the dangers associated to that. Deputy Ferguson, if you can provide some more information on that.
Thank you, Chief. Yes, we had dozens of incidents over the weekend of this nature where officers were standing, attempting to block roadways to ensure that safe passage was there for whether it was vehicular or pedestrian traffic. And we did see a number of vehicles, some of the big rigs, but many of the personal vehicles who were involved in this type of intimidating behavior, whether revving of engines, approaching them as they were, giving proper hand signals to keep an intersection clear, and then once stopped, inciting and trying to taunt officers into an inflammatory incident. So we know that our officers, their professionalism and cool heads prevailed, and were able to de-escalate a number of these situations. But we did see some of the behavior that was totally unacceptable and beyond the norm of what we normally see in this type of demonstration.
Thank you. We will now go to Janice Dixon with the Globe and Mail.
Hi there. My question is for Chief Slowly. There is more than one photo circulating online right now of police posing with protesters one photo caption says it's Ottawa police and another shows 4 officers on horseback with a protester. Can you comment on this behavior?
Thank you very much for your question. First of all, let me be very clear, not just in this protest, but in any protest that I've been overseeing as chief of police in my tenure here. Not just in protest, but any operation where our members are engaged with the public. And not just in our members' engagement with the public, but even their engagement with each other. I've been very clear as chief of police and will continue to do so. We uphold our oath of office. We stay true to our core values. We are under the governance of the Police Services Act, and we have the policies of the organization. Any blatant disregard or misconduct that breaches any of that will result in an investigation and appropriate discipline. We were very clear in demonstrations of this nature, and particularly in this demonstration, that officers will be very cognizant of the need to appear to be and to be professional in all those encounters. But you have just heard from Deputy Chief Ferguson about some of the very direct and dynamic engagements that our officers are under pressure on 24 hours a day. Officers have the responsibility and the ability to use every means available to engage, communicate with, de-escalate with members, individuals, and groups in order to preserve the peace, which is paramount in this operation, public safety. If an officer has to be able to smile, shake a hand, raise a thumb in order to get people to calm down, to not drive over a barricade, down a road, to turn off their engine, to alleviate any number of the stresses and strains, to stop the commission of any offenses, they have the full right and responsibility to use that. I will not tolerate any officers or any members of my organization expressing public opinions that don't match with the priorities and their oath of office, priorities of the service, and the oath of office of our organization. And I stated that publicly on Friday. I'll restate it again. If there's evidence of officer misconduct, the Office of Independent Police Review Directorate is a place to lodge a complaint, or that complaint can be sent directly to me, and it will be investigated one way or the other. The vast, vast majority of our members, our officers, our partner agencies have done everything they can within the laws, within the policies, to prevent violence. They've done so successfully, under great duress and under great stress. I'm very proud of our members for what they've done. But if there's evidence of officer misconduct, I will investigate it fully and formally.
Thank you. And I realize this question has been asked in different forms, but you know, truckers out on the street right now are saying they have enough fuel to last 6 months to idle there on spot. And so, you know, Twitter is really awash with people from Ottawa criticizing the police for not moving them out. I'm just wondering if you've heard of any of that feedback and you know what your response is.
If your question is, do I know whether or not a vehicle can idle for 6 months? I've never heard of that. If your question is, are we experiencing a lot of residents, business owners, visitors complaining about the massive disruption that this demonstration has caused in their lives? Absolutely. And they are justifiable in their concerns and their desire to return to some sense of normalcy and to reduce the fear in their lives. We've addressed that before. We are doing our very best through negotiation and our operations to our partners to reduce the size of the demonstration. We've done so safely and successfully and significantly in the last 24 hours. We'll continue to do so.
Thank you. On va maintenant à Mylène Crête avec la presse.
Hi, just 2 quick questions. I wanted to know if you have the information about how many trucks have left the city of Ottawa so far.
Thank you for your question. I'm going to turn that over to Deputy Chief Ferguson. Do you have any updates for the question?
Yeah, we believe the number is in the several hundreds that have left since the end of the demonstration yesterday. So we know that we have now reopened the Sir George Etienne Parkway. Sir Johnny MacDonald has been reduced in terms of they've only got one lane now, and we've been able to free up some of the other more congested areas. So we don't have an exact number, but it's a mix of personal vehicles as well as some of the larger truck vehicles.
And I was wondering, did the police issue any tickets at all so far? Just want to make sure I'm clear on this.
I don't have numbers on that. Obviously, police can issue driving infractions, and we would be able to pull those numbers and based on the locations to determine if it was associated to the demonstrations or not. If it is parking tickets, then that is something that both police and bylaw can do. So I don't have those numbers, but my understanding is we canvassed specific areas at the end of the day yesterday to be looking for infractions. And our officers, our traffic officers, were very heavily involved with the demonstration, and where behavior warranted, we can also take down information and charge at a later date if the driver is identifiable. So the numbers we have right now would not be a fulsome picture of what's taking place.
Thank you. On va maintenant à Julien Paquette avec le droit.
Hi, question would be for Chief Slowly. You've mentioned earlier in this press conference that there have been, I think you said, tens of thousands of people during the weekend. I'm just trying to get a clarification on what would be the the best estimation of how many people there has been maybe during the peak of this weekend of this demonstration.
Thank you very much, Julian. Guessing numbers at demonstrations that are fluid in this nature, and literally we have people parked on the Sir Johnny MacDonald Parkway with trucks that could have one person in it or 20 people in it. The people that found their way down to Wellington Street, Parliament Hill, and the surrounding streets, the people that were going through the various streets around the market, Lower Town, at any one time, an impossible task to be able to give you any sort of an exact number. I have heard numbers at one point as high as 18,000 and as low as 5,000. Saturday was definitely the largest amount of trucks and demonstrators over a 24-hour period. The numbers were significantly lower on Friday, a little bit lower on Sunday. Obviously, during the day, daylight hours, the numbers were higher. When nighttime came, the numbers went down. Unfortunately, the dangerous nature, dynamic nature of the crowds went up, including the use of alcohol and other stimulants, which left the risk to our officers. Even though the numbers were down, the nature of the crowd dynamics, the individual acts of defiance became far more difficult for our officers to manage. In fact, I would say the night shifts were much tougher on our officers and our partner agencies, as well as, I won't speak for the city of Ottawa, but for their service providers as well. Very dangerous and dynamic crowds, even when the numbers were greatly reduced in the nighttime. We've had great success in reducing the numbers at night and during day in the last 24 hours, and we'll continue to drive toward a complete end to the demonstrations, and as much as possible, as safely as possible, and as quickly as possible, a return to relative normalcy in the city of Ottawa, and particularly in the core of Ottawa.
Thank you. And my follow-up, I guess, would be for you as well, and maybe Councillor Deans, if she wants to chime in on this. You've mentioned a couple of times today that there has been no injuries and no riots and no deaths, and I'm just wondering how do you think people of this city react when some of them have been felt harassed for wearing a mask in a public place, or as we've talked about a little earlier, some people being harassed at their home, have rocks thrown in their windows because they have a pride flag in this window. So I'm just curious to know, how do you understand the frustration of people in the city, with the length of this protest and the appearance of, I understand you're trying not to generate anything bad, but the appearance that you're letting these demonstrators just do whatever they want, basically.
Thank you for your question. I'll see if Chair Deans wants to respond, but I'll respond first. As I said in my opening statements, I have great empathy and compassion for those members of the community, whether they be residents, whether they be tenants of a rental unit, whether they be business owners or employees of businesses. Anybody who's been directly impacted by this demonstration has my full sympathy and my full support. We had a massive demonstration, extremely dangerous, that descended on this city through no invitation of anybody here, that took over our downtown core and did exactly what we thought it would: create traffic chaos, noise chaos, congestion chaos, and high-risk behaviors from a wide variety of actors who came here from across the country for a wide variety of causes. It has been extremely difficult for residents. Anybody that has been harassed, anybody that has been intimidated, and anybody that has been the victim of a hate crime will have our full support. We have been extremely restricted in our ability to deploy resources away from the demonstration and to respond to anything other than emergency calls for service. Now that we've had success reducing the size of the demonstration, at least over the last 24 hours, we're going to redeploy resources to better support and create safety in those areas. I'm a resident of this city, and if I or my family or my property was vandalized, if my wife or children were threatened or intimidated, if I was a victim of a hate crime, I would feel that I need support and service and I want to get it. And I completely understand that. I would also try to understand the larger context around which is taking place. And I think that's what the vast majority of our residents and business owners have. And that is why we've had support and cooperation and a measure of success to date. But we are absolutely committed to ending this demonstration as safely and as quickly and as effectively as we can, balancing the wide variety of public safety issues and Charter of Right issues that we have to. I'd invite Chair Deans to have her own comments.
Well, thank you very much for the question. And yes, I entirely understand the frustration of the public. I share that frustration very much. I want these protesters to leave our city. They came here, they have a right, in our democracy to protest and make their point. They do not have a right to engage in hateful behavior, to wave swastikas and Confederate flags, to defecate in public places, to desecrate our monuments, to disrupt our businesses, to disrupt our lives. It has been a real low point, in my opinion, in the history of the city that we have borne witness to this kind of behavior by our fellow Canadians. And to all of the people who live downtown and who have been most affected, I have to say to them that I understand your frustration. I understand why you're asking questions about why these people aren't being apprehended, why they aren't being, why the bylaws are not being enforced to the full extent. And I think what you're hearing from Chief Slowly is we recognize that there's a risk assessment that is being done. Ultimately, the safety of the public and the safety of our police officers is paramount. And so when the police, because it's an operational issue, I don't control what police do. I only make sure they have the resources in place. But when police make an assessment that the risk to public safety is high and that they have to act accordingly, we have to understand that. But it does not lessen, in my mind, one iota, the disgust that the public has for the behavior of these protesters. And, some people came here to protest against mandatory vaccination. Some people came here to protest vaccine policies. Some people came here for quite different reasons, and I believe hateful reasons. They have a right under Canadian law to peacefully protest. I don't believe they have the right to engage in the kind of behavior that we have seen here. And, you know, all of us want this to end. We want it to end quickly and we want it to end peacefully. And that is what the City of Ottawa, the police service, and all of us are ultimately working toward.
Thank you. On va maintenant à Anne-Caroline Desplanques avec le Journal de Montréal. Anne-Caroline, on ne t'entend pas? Okay, we will now move on to Rachel Parent with the National Post.
Hello. Actually, my question was answered. Thank you.
Sounds good. We will now go to Bruce Deachman with the Ottawa Citizen.
Hello, can you hear me?
We sure can.
I have a couple of questions for Chief Slowly. The first one is, and I understand your concerns about the volatility of this situation given the size of it, but do you worry that by not charging people with things like mischief and whatnot, that you empower the crowd to continue to do that, to behave like that?
Thank you very much. As I've said, people who commit criminal offenses in or in relation to this demonstration are being investigated. You've heard from Deputy Chief Bell a number of investigations we have. I've announced that we'll be opening a dedicated hate crime line and crime reporting line for anybody that feels they've been the victim in any way from these demonstrations. All of those reports will be investigated, and where we have the ability to lay charges, make arrests if necessary, and continue prosecutions to conviction, they'll be done, and they're already being coordinated through the Crown's office.
But it doesn't happen at the time, right? I mean, that's what I'm thinking, that these people will think I'm just getting away with it.
Well, and they may think that, but that is the balance that every officer who has to come across these incidents has to judge. Taking an enforcement action in the moment, which could result in arrests being made, and yes, that could have some sort of a deterrent effect, versus the ability to do that without being swarmed, without creating a riotous behavior, without using force in a crowded area with trucks with their engines on, is the equation. If we're talking about an act of vandalism, an act of threatening or assaultive behavior, our officers make those arrests every single day across Canada's largest geographic municipality, home to 1 million people in the National Capital Region. We do that every single day. We don't do that every single day when there are 5, 8, 18,000 demonstrators with 2,000, 3,000 heavy trucks and thousands of other vehicles crammed into a very small set of footprints in the downtown core at the continuing point of a 2-year global pandemic with all the stresses and strains that we've been experiencing as a society. Those are two different risk assessment equations that our officers have to make. Day-to-day regular policing in Ottawa versus hour-to-hour, minute-to-minute public demonstration in high-risk, highly volatile circumstances. There are two very different threat risk assessments that our officers have to make and our incident commanders have had to make over the last 5 days. And that situation will continue. I know the regular public who experience those nuisances don't necessarily appreciate or can't understand those dynamics, but that is the reality of policing these large-scale, dynamic demonstrations. We've done our very best. We've kept the city safe. We've kept our members safe, and we will hold people to account who have broken the law to our very best of our ability. People who have been victimized by criminality, I encourage them to report it if they already haven't. We're creating a new system around which they can report it, and there will be full investigations. There will be consequences for those that we can identify as committing those crimes.
Thank you. And my second question is, I'm curious about the organizers that you're negotiating with, as this possibly, as we know, we've heard of, from hotel owners that people are going to be coming back next weekend. Is this slides possibly from a protest to occupancy? Are you confident that the organizers could end this? Do they have the, can they end this protest?
Thank you very much. You've pointed out one of the biggest dynamics. First of all, the people we are negotiating with don't represent anywhere near 100% of all the people who have come here to demonstrate. So whatever we're able to reach by way of compromise and a confirmation around a resolution to some aspect of the demonstration cannot be applied to every aspect of the demonstration. Secondly, even though we may have reached a compromise and a confirmation with organizers, they themselves have no authority or control over the people that they claim to represent. We are continuing to do our very best. We have had significant success in keeping the city safe, and we've had significant success in reducing the impact of the demonstration over the last 24 hours. We will continue to do our very best to reduce this right the way down to an end state. But we have very little ability to control all aspects or even most of the aspects of the people who have come here from across the country for a wide variety of causes.
Thank you.
Thank you. We will now go to Riza Patel with the Toronto Star.
Hi there. My question is for Chief Slowly. This question has somewhat been asked already, but I'm just looking for some clarity. Are there clear next steps on getting some of these vehicles and protesters out of the core? You know, has OPS been working with the RCMP, for example, to develop some kind of exit strategy?
Thank you for your question. As I stated before, we've been in ongoing negotiations with the organizers since Monday of last week. The transition of direct police liaison to the organizers happened when the demonstration crossed from Manitoba into Ontario. We embedded ourselves with the Ontario Provincial Police liaison officers, and as it arrived within a day of the City of Ottawa, that full transition of responsibility took place to the Ottawa Police Service. We've continued to be supported by the RCMP, the Ontario Provincial Police Service, other police jurisdictions that are dealing with aspects of the demonstration. I think you're aware of there are aspects of this demonstration taking place in the province of Alberta, as well as other locations. This is not just an Ottawa demonstration. This remains a whole of Canada demonstration. Actions that take place in one jurisdiction affect all jurisdictions. And that level of coordination between municipal, provincial, and federal police agencies, national security agencies, public safety agencies has been continuous since the start of the formal demonstration took place, and it will continue to be so. We are negotiating all options on the table. We are considering all options to end the demonstration. There are plans being developed around all those options, and we are using every leverage we can in the negotiations. I hope that answers your question.
And you just mentioned you have all options on the table. So does that include forcibly clearing them out?
All options are on the table.
Do you have a follow-up, Riza?
So we've heard from some convoy members today that they want their numbers to redouble by Friday, for example. And I'm wondering, will it be physically possible for them to do that?
I'll state the obvious. That's a question for the organizers themselves and the demonstrators. Is it possible for them to, for people in the immediate vicinity, Eastern Ontario, Quebec, from the GTA, which is a 4.5-hour drive, for hundreds, thousands of people to arrive here in vehicles and conveyances, for people to walk across the bridges, as we saw in the thousands on Friday and Saturday in particular? Absolutely.
Thank you. On va maintenant à Samuel Blais-Gauthier avec Radio-Canada.
Oui, bonjour. Je crois qu'il y a beaucoup d'informations qui ont déjà été dites là, à ce stade-ci là, de la conférence. Donc, moi, je vais juste demander en français pour le bien de nos médias télé et radio. Donc, demander en français un bilan des gens qui ont convergé, donc du nombre de personnes qui ont convergé à Ottawa, et un bilan, en fait, parce que ça a été évoqué, là, un bilan lorsqu'on dit qu'il n'y a pas eu de blessés, pas eu de morts, pas eu de... Donc, un bilan de ça, OK? Donc, ça, c'est la première question. Et la sous-question qui serait toujours en français, c'est quelles sont les prochaines étapes maintenant?
Thank you very much for your question. I'm going to ask Deputy Chief Ferguson to answer en français.
Merci Samuel. Juste pour être certain, vous voulez savoir combien de personnes on estime avoir vues ou reçues dans la ville pendant la fin de semaine?
Exact. Je sais que ça a été dit, mais juste pour l'avoir en tape en français. Donc, on estime à combien de manifestants et quel bilan qu'on en fait là, au niveau arrestation, au niveau blessés et tout là.
OK. Alors, nous avons estimé ou nous avons entendu, la police d'Ottawa n'est pas sous l'habitude d'avoir des estimations de même pour les manifestations, mais nous avons entendu entre 8 000 et 18 000. Nous savons qu'il y avait du monde qui était partout dans le centre-ville. Alors, c'était difficile de mettre un numéro là-dessus, mais 8 000 est à peu près, nous avions vu en fait cet montant pendant la fin de semaine. Plutôt samedi, c'était la journée la plus, où il y avait la foule la plus grande. En tant les prochaines étapes, nous commençons à faire, nous continuons à faire des négociations avec les organisateurs de la manifestation. Et puis, nous attendons à avoir la patience et nous prions la patience des résidents et nous continuons à faire ça paisiblement et puis avec le plus de progrès possible. En tant que votre troisième question, c'était les arrestations. Nous avions eu une arrestation pendant la fin de semaine, mais nous avions plusieurs cas criminels qui sont ouverts et puis qui sont aux états des enquêtes maintenant.
Juste pour une petite précision, j'ai cru entendre tout à l'heure le chef Slowly parler de quand même un bilan qui était quand même encourageant selon lui, où on faisait état de aucun blessé, aucun... donc peut-être juste nous répéter ça en français.
Oui, OK. Alors, la fin de semaine, la police d'Ottawa a eu une seule arrestation. Nous n'avions pas eu de rapport de personnes qui étaient blessées pendant les manifestations, ni du dommage de propriété dans le centre-ville.
Merci.
Merci. Puis on va essayer Anne-Caroline Desplanques avec le Journal de Montréal.
Oui, allô, m'entendez-vous?
Oui, tu peux commencer.
Ah, merci de prendre ma question. J'ai une question pour. I have a question for you, Chief Slowly. Ms. Dean says earlier that trucks can be used as weapon. So why did you let those trucks get into the downtown core?
Thank you very much for your question. If we were to try to block all the access and egress routes in and out of the city to any vehicle traffic, or even to set up checkpoints where we would, assuming we would even have the ability to identify those truck drivers that were part of a protest or not part of a protest. The scale of the operations and the need for the size of the officers to conduct that would be tenfold, if not 20-fold, well beyond the ability for the Ottawa Police Service or our partner agencies to do it. In order to do that, we would have to justify the level of interference in the lives and livelihood of tens of thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of people around the city. The impact on that of such an operation on the city would be even more massive than what we're talking about now. I'm not even sure it would be appropriate under the Charter of Rights. We cannot fortify a city of the size of the geography that is Ottawa. We cannot block all the highways and byways that would allow a bicycle, a car, a pickup truck, or a truck to come into Ottawa. And if we did that, particularly given the routes that go between provincial boundaries in Quebec and Ontario, we would significantly impact the economy and the livelihood of hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people. It's simply not an option. It was not one that we gave any serious consideration to. We did have operational plans should the elements of the downtown core change. And when they did, those plans were put into place to significant effect. We have shut down the downtown core significantly along Wellington, Elgin Street, Albert Street, and Lyon Street. Those plans remain in place. We're considering either shrinking that footprint in the next 24 hours if we're seeing a continuing withdrawal of demonstrators and trucks from the core. But it's very fluid. Where there has been a risk, we've changed and been flexible. We've created a safe environment as a result of those changes, and we'll continue to do so. But I can't think of any major jurisdiction in Canada that could fortify every single access point for every type of vehicle that could find its way in to the inner core for a demonstration. It's not logistically possible, financially sustainable, and I don't think it's even lawful. But thank you for your question.
In follow-up, Chief Slowly, there is roads in the downtown core where those trucks are basically forbidden. So in normal times, they're not allowed there and they would be stopped. So why were they not stopped?
Thank you. And again, appreciate the question. But as I've said from the last Friday through to today, these are not normal times. This is not a normal demonstration. This is a unique and unprecedented demonstration, the size and scale and nature of which we have not dealt with before. You've heard that from the mayor, you've heard it from the chair, you've heard it from me. Simply not an option. I appreciate you asking a question, but understand that simply was not an option. We have made adjustments continually over the last 5 full days of operations, and will continue to assess all of the risks and all of the options, and all the options are on the table. That option was considered and was not elected for all the reasons I've just talked about.
Thank you. And this concludes today's media availability. Cela conclut le point de presse d'aujourd'hui. Thank you, everyone. Merci à toutes et à tous.